Hello and welcome to Wellness TV. My name is Kimberly Haas. Today we are continuing our mini-series within our larger series. We're going to be discussing opioid misuse and abuse in the greater Derry community. I am joined by two very courageous women who are going to share their personal stories about how heroin has affected their lives. Welcome to the show today, ladies. Ruth Ann, maybe I'll have you start by introducing yourself to our audience.
My name is Ruth Ann Visco. I live in Salem.
Yeah, and how about you, Denise?
Hi, I'm Denise Ellis. I live here in Derry.
So maybe we can start by just talking a little bit about your personal experience and some of your backstory. Denise, I'll let you go first.
Okay. 5 years ago, my daughter called me to come home. She had been in jail for a month and a half. She was hooked on drugs and drinking. Homeless for 5 years. Homeless meaning actually living under a bridge, living from couch to couch, wherever she could find a place to stay. Her drug of choice was actually crystal meth. She tried heroin, and she said she didn't like the way it made her feel, so she stuck to the crystal meth and the drinking. And I know from reading articles and seeing things going on all around us that heroin is the horrible, horrible. All drugs are horrible, but heroin lately has been killing people because of the mixture of drugs within the heroin itself. But my daughter lived in Washington State, and I was here. So basically, I did not have it in my face the way many parents do. And I pretty much, many, many nights, cried myself to sleep because I couldn't help her. She was out there. She lost her kids. She's got 4 children, and the 2 youngest ones were taken away from her. She lost her home. She lost everything. She had been through some really bad incidences that nearly killed her because of the drug use and the drinking. And how it affected us was mainly me. You know, I think men tend to kind of push things back, but I didn't know what to do for her. I would get calls from her every now and then saying, yeah, I'm still alive, and she would hang up. That was hard. That was very hard. And like I said, I cried myself to sleep many nights. And during the time that I was going through this with her, I decided to join Al-Anon. And Al-Anon was so helpful, and going helped me to, when I was talking about the situation, it helped me to understand. And the more I talked about it, the more I realized that it was my problem, but it was my daughter's problem because she was the one who was hooked. And I just kept going, and I kept going. And she would call me several times saying, Mom, I need to come home. I got to get out of here. And I kept telling her no. You know, she used to call me for money. I have to go to the doctors. I need to get a prescription, this and that. And her own daughter, my granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, told me, Nana, stop sending her money. She's using it for drugs. And that's when I stopped. When I told my daughter, this well is dry, I can't give you any more money. It's done. And then she would call me up and cuss me out and hang up. Then she'd start calling and saying, yeah, I'm still alive, and hang up. And it was heart-wrenching for me. It was the hardest thing that she has put me through. And trust me, she's put me through quite a bit. But this drug business is horrendous, and it affects everybody, not just the families. It affects your whole community, really, and people need to understand and need to realize that it's out there full force, and we need to do something about it now.
Of course, your daughter was in Washington State on the other side of the country, so you must have felt very helpless going
I
through
was
all
helpless,
this.
totally helpless. And hearing her and knowing what she had been going through. And now I listen to her story because she speaks at functions, different functions. And I'm so proud of her today because right now she is with the Hope for New Hampshire, and they go to schools and speak to middle school kids. And she is going to school herself to become a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. She could be dead today because of her situation, because of her drinking and drugging and the people she hung with. She's been beaten up several times. And I'm very thankful that she's here today and helping other people.
Looking back, do you notice a point in time when her behavior changed? Was it through adolescence? I mean, I know it's difficult to pinpoint a certain point when a person becomes addicted, but was there a turning point or a change in her life?
No, in fact, Paula, when she was younger, didn't like kids who did drugs and would never, as she got older, she would never allow kids in the house that took drugs. And this all changed when she was overseas. She had married twice to military men. And unfortunately, they were overseas. And when she was in Germany, she nearly died from a car accident. And actually, she died twice going to the hospital and once at the hospital. And that's when I think her dynamics changed, where she just kept doing and doing. And when she lost her kids, she just got worse with the crystal meth and other drugs and the drinking. And the night she called, it was when she had spent a month and a half in jail. And she said, "Mom, I got to get out of here." She says, "I really need your help." And I could tell, I could hear it in her voice that she was ready. But the way it affected us was worse than I think anybody should go through. And I think, unfortunately, in the beginning, parents tend to say, "Oh, no, that's not happening, that's not my kid." And when you finally realize it is your kid, it's heartbreaking. Because you know that they're doing something to their body that is not good, and they could die from it. And unfortunately, I've seen it in my family. I have a nephew who died last year from alcoholism, and he was only 48, 49, I think. But what it does to the family is it tears it apart. It just, there's arguments because of it. And I'm saying arguments because when you want to do something and the other person in your household says, "No, let it go, just let it go, I'm tired of this, don't do anything," you still feel you have to do something. And her being in Washington State did not help. So when she came back home, unfortunately, my husband didn't want her to come to our house. But then after a week, she was staying with someone else, and then they were doing drugs. And she called me. She says, "Ma, I can't take this. I need your help." And I told my husband after I hung up from talking with her, and he says, "You go get her and bring her home. She's better off here." So that worked out well. And like I said, she's been clean and sober for 5 years and doing fantastic.
Ruth, maybe you could share your perspective.
Actually, I have a question.
Sure.
You said that she changed after her car accident?
No, it was after. Oh, she changed dramatically with the drugs. Yes, she actually she was drinking heavily when that car accident happened.
Do you feel as though because of the naturally they're giving narcotics for pain when it comes to like accidents and things?
Not
like
in her
that?
case. She had already been doing stuff.
You don't feel as though that had anything to do with it?
No.
No.
I mean, she liked getting them because she didn't have to think about stuff.
It's a pacifier.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes, and thank you for sharing, Ruth Ann. Maybe you could explain to the audience your experience and background as a loving mother of somebody who's been affected by drug misuse.
Actually, it was my son. He was about 12 when he first started drinking and smoking pot, and from there it just kind of escalated. His drug of choice was heroin, and it seemed like no matter how hard I tried or no matter what I did, nothing was helping. He spent most of his life, most of his adolescent life away from home than he did home. In rehab programs. As a mom, seeing the track marks on his arms, kind of, I don't know, rips your heart out. His addiction affected everyone in the family, including my youngest son, because it takes so much time and energy away from you, so it's like you don't have anything left for your other children.
Mm.
It's a very long and hard road. He was homeless for a while. He was living at in and out of the Heroin house, which was the next street over from where I lived. So he spent a lot of time there, and there's a specific memory that I have of all of it that tears me apart every time. I hadn't heard from him for a couple of months, and there's not a day that goes by where you don't think of where they are or what they're doing, or are you going to get that officer knocking on your door of, "I'm sorry about your son," and I hadn't heard from him for quite some time, and I came home from work one day and I pulled into the driveway, and we have a wood rack in our driveway, and it's got a tarp over it, and I pulled into the driveway and this guy comes walking out from underneath that tarp. He had torn and dirty clothes on. He was thin as a rail. He hadn't showered, hadn't eaten. And I just couldn't believe that it was my son, that I didn't even recognize it. So heroin addictions, any kind of addiction, is a long, hard road.
It's horrible.
And it affects everyone. And I feel really bad for any parent that has to go through any of it. Because I think no matter how old you get as a parent, you still have all those memories.
Absolutely.
And your heart still always breaks.
Mm.
I think one of the biggest things as parents, too, is that we feel guilty. We are guilty because we did something wrong. And I have realized through all my talking with different people, and that there is nothing that you did wrong. It's what happens when they're out there, whether it's among their peers or people that they just met, or, hey, this is great stuff, want to try it? Oh, yeah, sure, I'll try it. And my biggest fear with the heroin is the fact that they mix it with other stuff. And that's the stuff that can really kill you. Mm-hmm. But heroin, the way it was explained to me, it gives you this euphoric high the first time you try it. Then, what happens is you keep taking more because you're not getting that high back, but you want to feel that high, and you keep taking it and taking it.
I've also heard that a lot of teens use enough heroin where they're on the verge of death and then someone brings them back.
Yes, yes.
Which, that's Russian roulette. It's
yes.
like
they use a medicine called Narcan to do that. But as parents, you know, anybody hates to see their kids go through anything. And like I said, I did not have it directly in my face because my daughter was in Washington State.
Mm.
But after talking with several people and going to meetings and seeing other stuff going on out there, it's the worst thing in the world a parent can go through. Mm. Absolutely, other than the death of your child. Because you feel like sometimes that child is dead because of the way they became. And like you said, you saw him and you didn't recognize him.
Yeah, did not.
I was at a presentation with a former professional football player who admitted his addiction to heroin and other drugs. And as a matter of fact, he said one of his very strong memories that motivated him to recover, and he's been in recovery for many years. He talks with his wife.
Chris?
Yeah.
Chris Heron.
Chris Heron. And
I love listening to him.
He said that at one point in time his mother was standing over him and praying that God would take him. Mm-hmm. It's that hard.
Sometimes
you've done that, haven't you? I know.
To that point.
Yeah.
Because I think it's you've got this overwhelming fear that an officer is going to come to your door, or you know they're going to find him dead in a gully somewhere because. And then you just want for it to be done, so you pray, you know, that God will take that child, because it's almost as if they suffer. It's, you watch your child do all this, and you feel like they're suffering, and you just, being a mom, you just don't want for them to suffer anymore. And you want things to be easy, because this is not the reason why you brought that child into this world.
But you know what? I think we suffer more than they do, because they when they're on the drugs, they're oblivious to everything. They don't understand how it affects us. They don't know that we cry a lot and that we pray and hope that they will get better. And unfortunately, until they're ready, they don't get better. And I've seen it, you know, my family, my dad was an alcoholic, and I didn't even know it. I just thought he was always a happy guy. But he was an alcoholic, you know, and back then you didn't talk about stuff like that. And I've seen so many families go through so much, and so much heartbreak, and, you know, arguing, and, you know, trying to do, and then the kid says, no, leave me alone, I hate you, blah, blah, blah. And most of the time, it's not that kid talking, it's the drugs. When the things that they say to you are horrible, horrible. And like I said, my daughter used to call me up and cuss at me for no reason, just cuss at me. And when I did, like, I don't know what I want to say, I did not see it in front of me. And I think I was spared the most of the heartache that it causes. But I did. I was heartbroken. And when she came home, I said, you have to do this, because if you don't, and I find out you're back on drugs, you're out. But I haven't had to put her out. And I want you to know that there is hope. There is something that can be done, but they need to want it.
I know. Took me a long time to realize that no matter what I try and do to help, they have to want to help themselves first. Because I used to always file a CHINS petition, Children in Need Service, to keep him in the court's eyes so that he would be on probation and I would have something to fall back on for some kind of help. Because he was climbing out the bedroom window when I wasn't looking. At night, you think he's in bed, and no, he'd just pop the screen and out he'd go and sleep on the roof over at Store 24. But once he would act out more when he felt as though his probation was up. So I would have to refile. In fact, his JSO was absolutely awesome, Glenn Kershaw, and he would encourage me to refile the CHINS petition just to be a backbone, something to help. So when I did need those, needed to put him in his recoveries, I had some place to go and I had something to fall back on, but unless you really keep up with all of it, you have nothing. You're alone. And a lot of parents feel as though they're alone, and you're doing this big struggle and battle all on your own. And I don't think New Hampshire has a heck of a lot of resources to fall back on. You really have to get out there and search, and you need somebody like a JSO in the community that you can go to find all of the resources that there are here.
You're absolutely right. And unfortunately, when it comes down to it, New Hampshire is second to last in the nation for help with anything like this.
It's awful. I mean, I think we need more in this state than we have.
It's been so hard with the cuts over the course of many years. It's not recent cuts. The number of beds that are available for mental health services and the number of resources that are available for drug and alcohol counseling and recovery is just, it's not there. And unfortunately for many people, we do rely upon our jail system. We do rely upon our legal system to take care of some of the issues that surround this, to keep people safe. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. There is, in Brentwood Jail, there is a program that they have called STAR, and the acronym escapes me as far as what each letter stands for, but some people really benefit from it, and others don't. It all depends on the person that needs it. And the STAR program has helped many people, but unfortunately you have to be arrested in order to get it.
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That really is unfortunate.
Absolutely.
I don't think this state realizes that these kids, this is our future. You really need to help with it.
One of the best facilities.
More.
Absolutely. But one of the best facilities right here in Derry is the Center for Life Management. Those people are phenomenal.
They are.
And they've helped so many. And yeah, it started out as a mental health facility to, deal with, a lot of them deal with the younger crowds. And they will give you different programs to look into and also counsel you in many different ways. But it is the best facility I've seen in a long time to help people.
They have some amazing people there.
They do.
People that are experts, not just on mental health or drugs, but current disorders and things like that, they really do have a lot available for anybody who needs their resources.
They do.
Now, Denise, I know that you mentioned Al-Anon as a resource for you. What else was helpful for both you and your daughter as you fought for her recovery?
What was helpful was when she came back, she has an uncle who knew people. And fortunately for her, she was able to get into rehab in Manchester, and their beds are limited, very limited. And they have a newer facility now, but I don't know if it's the same as what it was when it was on Hanover Street. But it was extremely helpful because they were no nonsense. They said, nope, you got to do it this way or you're out, or nope, you can't do this. And she called me up only once. I got to get out of here. You got to come pick me up. I can't stand it. I said, no, you're staying for the full term. And I think that was the best thing that happened to her. Because then when she got out, she kept going to the AA meetings and she kept doing what she needed to do. And today, her two youngest kids are now talking to her. They didn't for a long time.
That's awesome.
And she cries a lot because she says, I'm so lucky. I'm here and I'm doing well. But can I mention the facility's name that she went to?
Absolutely.
She went to the Farnham Center. She had to go to detox first, then to Farnham Center. And they were fantastic because we were able to go once a week. I was able to go once a week and listen to everybody's story. And it helped me understand a little bit more. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that it's a disease, but it's a disease that causes the brain to, do something stupid. And you treat it like any other disease, like diabetes, cancer, heart attacks, It's listening to the experts and listening to everybody else who was affected by the drugs helped me a lot. And I think Paula finally got it, that this is where she wanted to be. She didn't want to do it anymore. She couldn't do it anymore. And I just wish that there were more treatment facilities in New Hampshire for these people, because that would be the best thing ever. And of course, they have to be disciplined. They have to do what they're told. They have to stay in. They can't go out at night, You can't go visit your family. You have to stay there and you have to work what they give you, with what they give you. And that's what she says all the time about AA. You have to work the program. Because if you don't work the program, then you're not getting it.
You're right.
How about you, Ruth Ann? What's been helpful for you?
My son, my youngest son, he's pretty supportive.
That's good.
Yeah. That.
You haven't talked to anybody in the community?
No. I kind of always just took it on my own shoulders.
Ruth Ann, maybe you can describe for us some of the things that have been helpful for you in the recovery process.
I have a younger son that has been extremely supportive, and I know all of it has affected him. That the JSO, like I said, and the programs that my son has been in, you do a lot of family orienting things with these programs, so we did get some support from them. It's like he did time up in, it was Eckerd Wilderness Camp.
Mhm.
And the staff up there was absolutely awesome. Met with them like maybe once a month. So they were very helpful. But I think the biggest help was the JSO, giving us options. But I think for a full recovery, it has to be an ongoing thing on the adolescent or adult part of, you go through your program, but you also need to keep up with it even after you're done with your program, whether it be counseling, Alcoholics Anonymous, or even Narcotics Anonymous. And I think that all of that combined will help with a good recovery.
Absolutely, and keeping people on the right track in their road to recovery, and make sure that as they are recovering from one thing, that they don't fall into something else. I know that that's a big concern and big issue for people, and that's true with anybody who's trying to help themselves with something, whether it be to lose some weight, to combat their diabetes, that they don't pick up another bad habit along the way or something like that. What were your biggest fears as your child was going through recovery?
Relapse.
Relapse and I lost it. Yeah, relapse is the biggest fear. She told me, thank God for this. Paula has said to me, Mom, I want to pick up a beer. I want to do something. I said, well, as long as you don't do it, you're doing okay. Call your sponsor, talk to somebody. And she did that, and that's what helped a lot as a sponsor. She went through 3 or 4 sponsors till she found the right one. And a sponsor needs to be strong. Go ahead.
Yeah, even counseling. I think my son went through 8 different counselors.
8?
Yes. In order to find the right one. Unless you have that right support system, it just doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Well, sometimes counselors, no matter how nice they are, no matter how much information they have, they're just not the right fit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they may not be on the same wavelength as you. They may have a different emphasis or focus. Maybe the person that's in need of recovery gets a lot from reading something, and the counselor's more of a talk it out person. Things of that nature.
Well, I also noticed with my son that he could say what you wanted to hear.
Yep.
Which didn't do any good. And so unless you get a counselor that can see through all of that and read that,
Absolutely.
It's just not working, because he's just kind of playing the system.
Right.
And they all know how to play the system.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, they have an underlying motive to not be truthful, to continue to do what they intend to do.
Ruth Ann was telling me an interesting story about her husband sitting on the porch. And I think you should relay that, because these are some of the things that happen to families with addicts.
My husband one night had to sit on our front porch for the entire evening, actually the entire night, with a shotgun, because my son's dealer had threatened him, as well as his entire family, of, we will kill you and your entire family if you don't pay. So, and it's not something that you can call the Salem Police Department and say, look, this is what's happening, because you also run the risk of you're calling the cops, so it's well, not only that, but it's against the dealer, so there's always some kind of retaliation from that as well.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like you have any choice but to try and protect yourself as well as your family.
And you don't want to escalate the matter.
No.
That's kind of a sad commentary, too, because the police are there to protect you, and yet you're afraid to call them because of what the retaliation might be against you or your family. And, you know, it's a tough street to go down.
And I know a lot of officers who work very, very hard and would tell any parent to please call them, you know, but I understand that fear because it's one of those things where, especially in your circumstance, Ruthann, where the house was just a street away, a police officer can't stand outside your door all day, every day, watching your comings and goings to make sure everybody's safe.
I can remember once going to the Heroin house and knowing that he was in there and pounding on the door, yelling,
Taking
swearing,
your life in your hands.
going, "You get out here. You do not belong in here. You are coming home." And as a parent, those are the things that you do to protect your child from what you know what's going to happen in the end. So
I know somebody who did the same thing. She went to the house and boom, boom, boom.
I do too.
Yeah, and this one I was telling you about earlier, that her son, he's a really good kid. And he's been in and out. And this last time he was in jail, he came out and he says, "I'm going to do it this time. I really need to get sober." And he's a really good kid. And that's the thing. A lot of people don't understand. Your family, everybody's family dynamics are different. And you could come from a great home, you get everything, anything you want, and you're one of those kids who's doing drugs. It doesn't have to be from a place where, you know, you get nothing and your family's poor or anything like that. It's a lot of good kids, a lot of good people who are in trouble with the drugs and the drinking and, you know, because they make bad choices.
I think that that's a very common misperception when it comes to dealing with the topic of alcohol and drug misuse. That a person who is a user must have come from a bad home.
Yeah, their parents
They must
didn't
have had
teach
an
them.
abusive situation. They must be poor. And all of those are not
Absolutely
true.
not true.
I've talked to a number of people who came from very nice households and people who knew them who said, well, rich kids just get better drugs.
Oh, no, not
or
true.
more. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's horrible. It's horrible to categorize somebody or categorize somebody's family or pass judgment.
Yeah.
We're all just human beings. And that's
Absolutely.
another thing that I want you as parents to know and our audience at home to know that, I mean, any one of us with these highly addictive drugs, if given an instance where there is a bad choice made, could have easily been hooked. Crystal meth is very addictive. Heroin is very
yes, it
addictive.
is.
They're
And it's
deadly.
so hard to get off of these drugs too for the police officers I know that work with some of these people because they're, you know, burglarizing places and they see them again and again. They'll tell you that quite often these addicts will look them straight in the face and say,
And
I don't
lie.
want to do this, but I don't want to get sick. Particularly with heroin, there's that dope sickness where people lay on the floor
Oh,
for
it's awful.
days.
Yep.
And
Watched my
it's just
son.
like the worst flu that they've ever had is how it's described to me.
It's worse. Yeah, it's worse than the flu.
I watched my son go through it. It's awful. Awful.
And you know, crystal meth has the same effects, but people say you can't die from crystal meth, but you can die from heroin or cocaine. And I think you can die from anything if you overdo it.
I feel that way too.
And
I do.
I think that that's just talking about overdose. I mean, not the long-term effects that these things take on the body. I mean, it's similar with even the marijuana debate in New Hampshire, that over long term, you know, it's just like smoking, and none of these things, maybe even if they are considered to be something that, oh, you won't overdose from, are safe.
None of them.
And all of them destroy our human bodies.
It takes away your brain.
Yeah.
You know, there is something in the hardcore drugs that affects your brain and your cells, and you do lose cells, according to what I've read and heard, and you can't think straight, and you can't function. And there are people who are alcoholics, who what they call functioning alcoholics, who can go to work every day and do what they need to do. But when it comes to the drugs put you down. And like you said, with heroin, you're down for days. And sometimes people don't know it until they find you dead. And trying to get help for things like this is what I would advocate for, is to get more treatment. Treatment to me is what we need.
Yeah.
The cost, too. I mean...
Well, yes, and we have to get the cost. It's hard because a lot of insurance companies don't cover it.
Yeah, teens and adults, I mean, unless you have money or a good health insurance plan, I mean, it's an out-of-pocket expense, and a lot of parents can't afford it.
I know, and it's so hard too, because this is a problem where, you know, arresting your way out of it isn't going to work.
It's not helping.
And throwing money at it isn't going to work, because it's the people that need to want to do it. And I'm hoping that conversations like this, and conversations that I hope our audience members at home have with their families, can be a good starting ground. First of all, people need to realize they're not alone.
Right.
Their children are not alone in fighting this battle. We're all in it together. And the more that we can reach out to each other, the stronger the foundation will be for not just the recovery community, but all of the people who are affected by alcohol and drug use and misuse in our state. And it's across the board. Obviously, this show is focusing on heroin, but this reaches to many different issues, even even nicotine use and things like that. The more we talk about it, the more we can say, you know, these things are bad. We need to stop using them as a society, and this is how we can. I think the healthier we'll be. I wanted to mention a few resources that I know have been helpful for me as a reporter in learning about this subject, not having any direct personal knowledge. And The Anonymous People was a fantastic movie. I saw it in Concord. The house was packed, and there was not a dry eye in the room when the movie was over. Another movie that I've heard a lot about and I've only seen previews of is The Hungry Heart. It focuses on Vermont's opiate addiction, because this isn't something that just affects us here in the Granite State. It's throughout the country. What resources would you suggest for others?
I can suggest many. First of all, if they're willing to at least talk to somebody, NA or AA, if they're willing to have somebody, even if you have them come to your house to talk, to try and make them, you know, see what they're doing to themselves. Right now, like I said, CLM is a wonderful place for people to get help. Not so much for recovery, but it's, you know, it's mental health. It's something that's a big issue, and it's all around us. People, not just drug use, but there's other things going on that cause people to get mixed up and confused and stuff like that. I get online a lot. I go online and I read. I read a lot of stuff, and listening to my daughter has helped me tremendously. She has helped me tremendously to understand a lot of this stuff. And I belong to that organization now, the for drug misuse prevention. And there's a lot of experts, law, people who are in recovery, so many of them that now can point you in the right direction. You know, I know what it's like to not have anybody to talk to.
Also, too, I'd like to recommend for our audience at home, there's a lot of unexpected resources in our community as well. There are a lot of great articles out there. There's resources at the library, like you said, books. Also, too, if you're a person of faith, talking to your priest or your minister, they've seen it before and they've counseled families through it before too, and I find that sometimes they're an unexpected resource. So hopefully the people at home have learned a lot today about your perspective and your experience. Is there any last thought you'd like to share?
Just keep hope. Just hope, you know, you hope for the best for everybody. And those families out there who think it's not happening to them or who don't want to talk to anybody about it or just, you know, talk about it. Excuse me. Talk about it because it helps you. It helps you to stay healthy and it helps you as far as your mental well-being.
They're not alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are not alone. And everybody at home, if you're struggling with some of these issues within your own family, please realize that Ruth Ann is right. You are not alone. There are so many people out there that are thinking about you and praying for you and your loved ones. If you are a person that is struggling with any of the issues we've discussed today, but particularly opioid misuse, know that recovery is possible. It does happen every day. It's a lot of hard work, and there are so many roadblocks on the way to health again, but you can do it. Wellness TV will have some information that will be provided on these topics and other topics that affect the youth in our area on the Community Alliance for Teen Safety's website. That's catsnh.org. Once again, thank you so much for watching our program today. My name is Kimberly Haas. Have a great day.